me rather than ashamed of me. I don't agree when people say there was a love triangle in this story, but I can't tell you why because it's kind of a spoiler for the ending, which is also the vlog where I got engaged. Totally made me think of the Inheritance games. Thunderhead had a vested interest in them. Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. When I made my 26 before 26 list a couple of weeks ago of 26 books that I want to read before I turn 26, I promised myself that because of the complete failure of my 25 before 25, I would actually hold myself accountable throughout the year until I turn 26. You can be proud of me rather than ashamed of me. So I have an update for you guys that I'm really glad to announce, which is that I have read 2 books already. The first book that I have read already is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, which is part of my big Scythe vlog that I did, which is also the vlog where I got engaged. But this book I gave 4.5 stars. I really loved it. As for what this story is about, I can't tell you what this specific one is about because it's obviously the second in the series, but the story or the series follows Citra and Rowan, who are 2 individuals living in a world that has essentially defeated death, which means that the Scythedom was created in order to maintain population control, and what the Scythedom does is they glean or kill certain members of the population, and it's supposed to be completely objective and random, but throughout the story you begin to realize alongside Citra and Rowan and the various other characters that we meet that there are definitely massive power struggles and power dynamics at play that mean certain groups and certain people are targeted. So it's a really fascinating world to follow. There's definitely a lot of grey characters, a lot of really clear villains and a lot of really clear heroes, and it's got a somewhat unsatisfying ending, but that was just my personal belief. I really think you should go and read it. As for my thoughts on this story, I think the characters in the book expanded so much further beyond the characters that we met in Scythe, as we got to know so many more aspects of the world outside of just the Scythedom. So we got to know characters who were involved in the Toll movement, the Unsavories, who are completely just against everything that the Scythe represents. We got to learn about the academics, and it was just so fascinating to see all the other components of this world and how they all interacted with each other. On top of that, Rowan and Citrin obviously grew so much more compared to the previous book. Like with Citra, she had this interesting sort of like identity crisis going on throughout this story where she, you know, when she was talking to people, she was very confident in who she was. She was Scythe Anastasia, that's how she referred to herself. But then when she was in her own mind and she was going through the like internal monologues and everything, she was always like didn't know how to refer to herself. And then obviously Rowan, as he goes through this sort of vigilante style plotline and like arc, was really interesting, as he was, you know, he would talk about how his family would see him and he would feel almost ashamed of what he was doing, but then so fervently believing that what he's doing is the right thing. And I mean, lastly, reading from that Thunderhead's perspective was so interesting because it offered perspective and reflection on the situations and the circumstances in the story, as well as making it really clear exactly which characters to look out for, because the Thunderhead had a vested interest in them. I mean, generally dystopian fiction is so fascinating to me because it has this quality where it's so similar to the world that we currently live in that, you know, you're able to recognize certain aspects of the characters and how they behave and the social constructs and everything like that. So it's so similar, which makes it so scary, whilst also being so different, so that those fantastical elements, like, you know, they don't jar you or anything. It really makes you question when you read this book, like, could this happen to us? But yeah, I really love this book, and I really enjoyed jumping into the third book, I should say, in the series, The Toll. I enjoyed that one slightly less, but if you want the full details, go and watch the Series Smash vlog that I made for it. This book got 4.5 stars. So yeah, that's one book done, and I have one more. So far, my 26 before 26 series is going really successfully because Belladonna by Adeline Grace, the second book that I read, got 4 stars. As for what Belladonna is about, it follows a girl named Signa Farrow who, after the death of her mother, she believes that she has just been followed by death everywhere, and death itself is unable to touch her. This basically means that she could poison herself as much as she wanted to and never actually die, but she believes that every time she goes to stay with a new family member, they die pretty quickly afterwards, and she thinks she's the reason for that and that death has cursed her. She then goes to stay at the eerie and dark and gothic Thorngrove Manor, I think it's called, household with the Hawthorne family, which totally made me think of the Inheritance games. And she is determined to not let death curse this family as well. She finds that there's a whole murder mystery surrounding the matriarch of this family that could potentially be playing out again for the daughter Blythe. And so Cigna teams up with a stable boy by the name of Silas, as well as reluctantly with Death himself, in order to sort of solve the mystery of what's going on in this family and potentially have some very, very cute romances as well. So I gave this book 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. It was very, very simple and readable and just fun. I don't think there was any particular depth to a lot of the characters. There was definitely a very soppy hero on Death's side, and then a very sort of enemies to lovers kind of situation that was actually well balanced on Cigna's side, in that she really, really hated him and believed that he cursed her at the beginning, and then she authentically grew feelings for him in a really nice way, which I appreciated. But I think the side characters were real like unsung heroes in this story, because they just had so much depth and so much backstory and so much grief attached to them, and the way they moved through that in the story was so fascinating, especially Blythe, who was just such a quippy, like witty character. She was so steadfast and so stubborn, and I really, really loved the scenes with her. As for the atmosphere of this story, when people describe it as gothic and dark, I didn't quite feel that as much as others I think have, but I definitely did feel the energy and the tension in the scenes when characters that I loved were put at risk. So I felt that part of the atmosphere, but not so much the actual setting. The plot was really, really fun. I thought it was well paced. I didn't feel like it lagged at any point. I don't think the writing was like, you know, lagging or dreary or anything like that at any point. I loved how murder mystery, fantasy, and romance were all tied together in this story, and they were tied together really well in a way that felt kind of, you know, seamless. I don't agree when people say there was a love triangle in this story, but I can't tell you why, because it's kind of a spoiler for the ending. And the cliffhanger at the end of this, and actually the reveal as well, were both really, really unexpected, but I'm really, really excited to see how the elements of the cliffhanger play out in the sequel, which I think is called like Foxglove or something. So I'm really, really excited to see how that's going to play into it, and maybe if a love triangle is going to appear in that story. So yeah, this one got 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this, and so far my 26 before 26 series is going really well. So these are the 2 books that I have read so far. So we are down to 24 books left in my 26 before 26, but let me know down below if you have read either of these books, or if there are any other books on my 26 before 26 list that you have read or think I should be jumping for next. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!